Nice. And we've just got a quick question from Stuart about where you got that belt from.
Yeah, everything I recommend today, there's a shop. If you're all based in Cheltenham, you're all based in Cheltenham. Anyway, you don't have to be based in Cheltenham, but there's a shop called Up and Running at the lower end of the high street, down by the brewery. Fantastic people there. Everyone who works there is a runner, so they know what they're talking about. And if you're a member of Cheltenham Running Club, there's a 10% discount on anything in there. So it's a good thing to do, and also you're supporting the local business as well, which is very important. You can, of course, get them from elsewhere. There's a big website, starts with an A. I can't remember what it's called, but I think you can get something on there.
Yes, that's right. Delivered straight to your door.
Yeah, something like that.
Fantastic. So yeah, thanks, Andy. I mean, in regards to warm up, guys, warm up's important. Well, it's useful, at any time, regardless of lockdown, in terms of improving the quality of your run, and basically just getting your blood pumping, getting the blood moving better through the blood vessels. Obviously, after a warm up, your blood vessels will dilate, and you're less likely to get burning lungs and aching, cramping legs. So, as Andy suggested, my thoughts are the best thing to do for a warm up is to first run and or walk if you need to a local park or even just a green. Stop there and then get into some fast and slows. So literally running for maybe 30 seconds out and then giving yourself a minute to come back. Or it could just be 20 seconds out, 40 seconds back, typically twice as long to come back, so that you're basically giving yourself a chance to do each run a little bit faster than the previous one, and then you're coming back and recovering on the way back. And typically we'll do that for 6 to 8 minutes. That should be plenty of time to get yourself feeling good. Stop for a bit of a stretch. We typically do dynamic stretches before our runs, so we're not actually trying to stretch the muscle and make any lasting changes. It's really just to get the joints moving through a range similar to what you'll be incurring with your run. That's the key thing. I mean, obviously you could just do a lap of the block, and whether you walk or run is up to you. But I guess through that warm up, we want it to slowly build. So you want to start off at sort of 60%, where there's not really much going on with your lungs, and by the end of the run, you do actually want to have felt like you've pushed yourself quite hard. And the harder you've pushed yourself in the warm up without overdoing it, the better you're going to feel after your stretch. Once your lungs have recovered from that intensive warm up, your lungs are going to be much more ready for whatever you're going to throw at them in your main set. That's Andy's touched on the warm up location.
Yeah, so as I say, that warm up location should be a little bit away from your home, and a good place to start and finish. I've got a place that has a fence and a lamppost that I lean against to do my stretches and things like that. But you'll have somewhere nearby. I'll be honest with you, somewhere quiet is quite helpful as well, because you can feel a bit self-conscious warming up on the side of a busy street. So the other thing you should prepare before you go out is if you're going to listen to music or a podcast or an audible story, then make sure that you've got that ready to play. And as I said before, make sure your phone and your headphones or earset are completed. Are fully charged. I've talked about these are bone conducting, so they sit on your bones just in front of your ears, and which has the added benefit of the fact that your actual ears are still able to hear traffic noise and other runners and cyclists coming past you. So personally, I would recommend something like that. They are a little bit more expensive. Connor, you run in those that you're wearing at the moment, don't you, sometimes? They do cover your ears, but if you've got something that's covering your ears, or you've got earplugs in, then you just need to be a little bit more vigilant about what's going on around you. So particularly when you're crossing roads and the traffic's coming from behind you, that's important. If you do have a fall or get any injuries as you're running, don't carry on running. Stop. just see if it subsides for a while. Connor will give you some advice on that. I learned earlier on, if you have a niggle while you're out, don't try and run home, because it doesn't do you any good. Don't be afraid to ask for help, call someone to come and fetch you. And at the moment, one other thing that's really, really important is thinking about how you avoid runners. There's various bits out there on the internet about distance that you should keep. Obviously, the government guidelines are 2 meters. When you're running, I hate to say this, but you do sweat. And they say that the sweat off your back can carry up to about 10 to 12 meters. So I always make sure, out of courtesy to everybody else, that I actually move out much earlier than I think I need to. Often I'm running in the road to avoid people, but again, that's an issue. You need to be really clear about that the road is clear. Check and double check. Most drivers at the moment are really, really courteous, and they will move out to avoid you if you are running in the road. I did have one driver a few weeks ago who thought it was rather funny to force me back onto the pavement. So you just need to be aware of that. But there's no reason why you can't run in the road. So think about more than 2 meters at the moment in terms of avoiding other runners. So Connor, how should we run?
Well, yeah, look, I've talked about this idea of having a challenge in mind. Yesterday I did a talk on stopping your lungs from burning, which is the #1 reason that people, tend to fail with the Couch to 5K, or just have a reason that they have a bad run. I'm currently processing that, and we'll get it up on the website soon. But what you want to have in regards to that challenge is not just a time that you want to survive for, or a distance that you want to be able to run. It's a speed. Now, in order to have a speed, an actual number, you need to have either a GPS watch or an app for your phone, something that can actually tell you while you're running, whether by looking at it or by having it come out audibly, to just update you on what your speed is so far in that run. And the reason for this is that if you don't know actually how fast you're running with a number, then you don't know whether you're going too fast. It's very easy to think, I feel good, I must be running at the right speed. But actually, we start off with muscles full of energy, full of glycogen. So it feels easy at first because we're full of energy. But as the run gets on, that energy starts to go, and we can quickly find that the lungs are having to work harder and harder, and all of a sudden it doesn't really feel that nice. And we realize that we need to stop and have a walk. Now, the problem with that situation, if we've got ourselves into a bit of a state in regards to running too fast, then often we're doing damage that can't really be undone within that session. I mean, we'll obviously recover from it in the next few days, but within that session, there's very little chance that you're going to be able to get yourself back up to that speed that you felt good at. So you're probably going to have to, go a lot slower, and then slower and slower. That's not what I would call a successful run by any means. So what I prefer is that you could actually start your run relatively conservatively. If you know what the average speed was of your last run, then you know that you should be able to start your run at that same average speed or slightly slower, assuming that you're going for the same distance. Okay, we don't want to be increasing average speed and distance in the same session, because it's like just compounding the stress on your body, just increasing the chance that you're actually going to have a bad run. So the key tip there is just to start slow. Now, I did punch up another slide here, just in terms of find out what you guys have as your sort of biggest challenge and or fear of running at the moment, through this period. So you can either punch that into the chat, or if you're polite, you can unmute yourself. So Stuart said, being 56 and not having run for over 40 years, I do walk around 20,000 steps daily, which is fantastic, Stu. And that really does set you up well for running, if you're doing a lot of walking, then what's stopping you from building some runs into that?
I felt a bit embarrassed having met a lady a few days ago who is doing a 10K later on in the year, that I had to admit that I set her a challenge of playing me at tennis, and she could then decide what to do next, and she couldn't nominate running because I hadn't run for 40 years. So I thought, that's a bit pathetic, because I was a runner at school. All through my school life, I ran cross country, middle distance. So I thought, it can't be that hard. And if Andy's done it, it must be achievable.
Thanks. Yeah. And you're a young man as well at 56, so you'll be all right. I'm touching 60 next year, so
yeah,
I can do it. Anyone can do it.
So that's interesting, Stuart, because I often refer to people as either tortoises or hares. Obviously, you were a tortoise at one stage playing all these sports, but now if walking is all that you've been doing, you've kind of turned yourself into a bit of a tortoise. And neither of them are bad. I know it sounds bad for me to call someone a tortoise, but actually, walking, you are pacing yourself, aren't you? You're not. It's very hard to overdo it by walking. But you've got this massive gap in between those, don't you? A gap in between walking long distance and then playing high intensity sport, whether it be tennis or whatever.
Tennis,
so
normally.
Really, yeah, tennis, right. So again, tennis is just full on and then easy, full on, easy. So you've got to try and bridge that gap. You've got both ends of the spectrum actually right there. You've got a good amount of endurance in your legs, which is great, and the legs will remember how to be explosive again once you look to do maybe some interval training. So actually it could be a lot easier for you than it is for others. There are a lot of people who have just walked all their lives. They've never really played many sports, so they find it hard to deal with the intensity of running up a hill or running into a headwind. As soon as the intensity goes up, the lungs go crazy. The other end of the spectrum is people who have just played team sports. They don't know how to slow themselves down. They're just all or nothing, racket sports, team sports. So yeah, they can't hack the intensity for long enough. They start off really quick, feel great, but then the endurance starts to get on top of them.